Somtochukwu Christelle Maduagwu, a vibrant 29-year-old journalist with the Arise News, was killed during an armed robbery incident at her residence in Katampe, Abuja, with further reports saying she jumped from her floor, the third floor of a building, while trying to escape the robbers. Her death has sparked outrage, grief, and a renewed call for accountability in Nigeria's security architecture.
She wasn't just a journalist. Somi, as she was fondly called, was a voice for youth, a symbol of hope, and a believer in Nigeria's promise. But in the early hours of Monday, that promise was shattered. Over 15 armed men stormed her apartment complex. Eyewitnesses say frantic calls to the police went unanswered, and when help finally arrived, it was too late.
Now, this occurred despite the Minister of the FCT's recent declaration of the nation's capital being one of the safest cities in the country. Speaking in his Independence Day anniversary message, Wike commended the residents for intentionally living in peace and harmony despite a few distractions. Authorities deny negligence, but several unanswered questions remain on the lips of Nigerians. But this has created a vacuum and has brought forth a conversation that must be had. So we have joining us for this conversation a security expert, Mr. Deji Oyenuga, and also later on we would be having another guest join us, the chairman of the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA Lagos State Chapter, Dr. Babajide Saheed. But let's start off first with the security expert who joins us. Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thanks for joining us. And obviously, some of the conversations that has come out of this recent incident is bordering on the state of insecurity in Nigeria. As an expert, it's no doubt that you've been monitoring the report cases and the various reports from different parts of the country, be it Kwara, be it Benue, be it Plateau, about the insecurity that's coming from these areas. Now, what makes this one very significant is the fact that it's coming from the Federal Capital Territory, a place or a state where many would ordinarily think it's the safest haven for every single Nigerian who lives there. But it's not in this case. So can you highlight the risks that indeed comes from this story and what it portends, especially for the citizens who live there in the Federal Capital Territory?
Well, thank you very much for that question. There's something that I need to make clear here. You see, when we say that a particular place is the safest place, it doesn't mean that we have zero crime in that place. There is nothing like zero crime. Crime will always be. It's just that it's going to be lower in some places and higher in some places, but I always tell people that crime is a functional part of every society. There must be crime. Now, in the case of Abuja, well, we expect there to be more security policies in place, more security men in place and all because of the fact that it's the Federal Capital Territory. And the same we expect for Lagos State as the economic nerve center of Nigeria. But you know, crime is inevitable, and you know, people can come up with strategies, and then we assume that it is the best. But there is something that we also need to know. No matter how strong the strategy that you have put in place, one crime will occur because as you are coming up with your strategies, some other people are planning to counter that strategy. So crime, security is more like countering crime, just like crime is countering security. And that is the normal flow. Even if you have security men to every individual in Abuja, one person to one person, one security man to one civilian, there will still be crime because there's no society of saints. We need to work with statistics and be sure that, okay, there's a lot because the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory that said security is perfect in Abuja did not give us empirical evidence to prove that truly security is perfect in Abuja.
Well, you've talked about...
I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yeah.
Yes, you have. Now, just taking a look at the incident that happened with the Arise TV presenter, what should be the typical response time for law enforcement once a distress call has been made in this type of situation? And do you see anyone dropping the ball amongst the security agencies? Was this incident avoidable?
Well, I think the incident was avoidable. Now, this is the way I say it. She lives in an estate where she lives on the 3rd floor. There were more people there. There were a lot of people there. There were 2 security men. One intervened, but it was short. And I want to assume that there was a call. There must have been a call, because part of security is having a connection with the nearest security post for there to be a kind of support. Because this is the way security works. Most times you see that police officers work in twos. Now, one is a backup to the other one, the immediate backup. You don't see security men working alone. So if you have a space that is being secured, you need 2 people minimum. One is an immediate backup. Now, the 2 are not enough, because you also need an extended backup that should be stronger than the immediate backup. So even while you are trying to contain the threat, you must also have a connection from outside that will help you to ensure that you are safe. Now, we need to ascertain that there was a call, or there must have been a call. Let us assume that there was a call. And when the call was placed, there must have been something. The police was meant to respond. Now, it depends on the distance between that location and the nearest police posts. I live in an estate where the nearest police post is about 5 minutes away. But then we decided that we needed immediate response. So we created a police post in our estate to provide for us immediate response. So they will now be, we have our security, we have them. Now they have the extended support. So generally, what we're saying here is that in a time like that, you need immediate response. I have been in a situation like that before too, but I made calls. I was making calls, I was mounting pressures, and for a person of that caliber, she was supposed to have such connection. Even if she doesn't have it directly, she will have it indirectly. She was supposed to calm herself and make calls and ensure that her doors are locked. She is on the last floor, on the 3rd floor. I'm not sure that's the last floor. On the 3rd floor. It's not sane for anyone to consider jumping from a 3rd floor, especially when the floor is concrete, especially when you do not have the training of an army officer or security training. So jumping was the last resort. Ensuring that you are able to man your doors is very important. You lock the main entrance, you lock other doors, and then you lock yourself in another room, so they will need to break one before they get to another one. And then you buy time. You make calls to buy time. And remember, she's not even going to be the first one, because they did not come with helicopter. She'll probably be one of the later ones. And they might not even get there, because for every crime, there is a time allotted for it. Maybe there's a target person. Maybe there is none. Maybe it's just a random crime. But they have a time allotted to it. So you will just buy more time by making calls. They didn't take away the network. There was no network jam. So you still have your phone. You still have a way of helping the security down there to get the support that they needed. So what she did was not needed. But really, I think that the residential committee or association should have provided more security than they did. You should have security in your home, first layer. You should have security in the area, second layer. Then you can then extend to the Nigeria Police or NSCDC.
Okay.
Now, that becomes the third and stronger layer.
If I may interrupt at this point, in response to what you're saying, I just need to be sure that we're not blaming the victim for the failure of the state to provide security, the failure of the estate to provide security, because it's easier to say that she shouldn't have jumped until you find yourself in that situation where, as a woman, you hear that, and even as a human being, you hear that there have been robbers. It's just like saying beating a child and telling the child not to cry. It's easier for us to give solutions on what we think she should have done or what we think she shouldn't have done, knowing well that, I mean, it's a state of panic, it's a state of fear, and anything can happen in that moment. And as a woman, when you hear that robbers are coming into your apartment, about 14 robbers are coming, the first thing you're thinking about is, not only will they steal from me, there's a possibility that they could rape. So can't we see that, you know, there are layers to this conversation before it got to her securing her apartment or shutting her doors, which I'm sure she did? The estate and the state particularly, should take the responsibility for providing security. Do we have CCTV cameras? Do our streets have CCTV cameras? Does the estate have CCTV cameras that can help with the investigation so we can see the people who came in and know what the next steps are?
Okay, I get your point, because this is a woman in question. Now, I have been in that kind of situation 3 times in my life. The first time was when I was a student. Robbers broke into my apartment and they brought out gun. And I was a final year student, and then the guy just said, he put bullets on my bed and then brought out the gun and said, this is gun, you want me to try him? I said, don't try it. Then he said, where is the money? I said, which money? Now said, how much do you have? I said, see, I have 100 naira. On that day, I think I had 120 naira. I said, I had 120 naira. And then he said, I like this guy. Nobody should touch him. And nobody collected that money from me. Then they left. Now, 2 rooms away from mine, they went away with about 3,000 naira. I'm talking about the year 2000. Such money were not small money anyway, but that was the year 2000. Now, about 6 years ago, I had robbers in my next compound. There was a gunshot to my compound. I had a dog. My dog was shot at, but it didn't touch my dog, so they didn't come into my compound. They left, went to another place and robbed them. But while we were there, my entire family, myself, my children, my wife, we had to sleep on one bed, the safest room in the apartment. And I went to a small corner that had more than 1 door, and then I was calling the nearest police station myself. Now, they said they shot at 1, but they took him away. Now, this is a country, this is a time when we need to build or prepare people for things like that. I am not blaming her. I understand she's a woman, but then we need to understand that there are times that we do not need certain things. So we need to train people, educate people. And that is why in the US, for example, they do security simulation every time, even in private schools. They will just sound the alarm that there was a threat. And then the people will start panicking and just start running around. And then they tell them that this is what we are trying to do. In the US Embassy, they do that too. They pretend like there is a terrorist attack. Now, this is training because security requires some simulation. So if we do not expose people to such condition, they will not know how to respond to such condition. And I'm sure that was part of the reasons why the government came up with security education from in the basic school, that is basic 1 to 9, hoping that people will have better information about security and then begin to act in that direction. Even if they are not in Nigeria, it could happen. Now, this is it. you don't blame the government directly for this particular case. You don't.
So who bears the responsibility?
The responsibility, I have said it before, the responsibility will go to the residential association. What security measures do they have in place? Remember that the government will not work if they do not have information. They don't have satellites covering everywhere in Nigeria. It's not like we're using satellite imagery security. We're not. We're still relying on information. We're still hoping to get phone calls from somewhere to somewhere, and then we act on the phone calls. But if we do not have that information, how do we act? And that's the point. We need to have that information first before we act in that direction. So basically, there must have been a stronger security. In an area, the area where I lived before, aside from the security man that we had, or men we had on my street, we also had more like collaborative security system, where all the security men in the area were like one group. So in the night, they communicate. Until I moved there. And of course, I consider this place safer than where I was living before. But then, you know, no matter how safe you consider this area to be, there are some people who are planning to find a way to break into that area because, like I said, we do not have any society where it is totally populated by saints. There will always be crime.
Okay, we do have a doctor who's joining us as well, the chairman of the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA Lagos Chapter, Dr. Babajide Saheed. Let's also look at it from a different aspect as well. We'd like your thoughts on the medical practitioners getting prepared and ready for emergencies like these. Do you think that they are indeed actually prepared? Because there's going to be, whether we like it or not, fingers pointing at them, just as we saw, even though the police had debunked that statement, and the one who helped them, the Good Samaritan, also debunked that statement. But how prepared are the medical practitioners for cases like this?
Good morning, viewers. Good morning. The issue we are talking about, number one, let me just first of all correct what the journalists in Arise are talking about. Maduagwu was brought in dead. You have to correct that one. Brought in dead was that she already died before being taken to the hospital.
Miss Maduagwu, you mean?
NMA, and we want to commiserate with the family of Miss Maduagwu, also commiserate with the Arise News, also commiserate with Nigeria on the unfortunate death of Miss Maduagwu, which that death should not have come if the security, as the security expert have said, have been put in place in terms of internal security within the house, internal security within the premises, the estate, internal security within the FCT, internal security, external security within Nigeria. If those two level of security are there, we will have got into this thing. Now, let me now talk about how prepared we are in terms of the emergency. To be frank, the health practitioners are really prepared for the emergency in any situation they find. If anybody is brought in with what we call trial, they will do trial. If they are master or casualty, they will do trial. And look, the first thing they do is to make sure that that person is he alive or not. And if the person is not alive, the only thing you have to do after look at the vital sign and confirm that person is dead is to tell the relative with empathy. Also, we communicate with them very well because they are at the time of they are being aggrieved, they are being tense, and within that short period of time, there can be crisis, but you have to tell them. The second stage is when you say the person is alive. It's in two ways. Is he critically alive? Is he less? Is it the injury is less? Then look at it. You first of all take care of the critical one. The one with the less injury, you now go and take care of that. That's what we call treating emergency care. But when emergency comes in, the first thing the first level will come in, the first level of care will come in, and the doctor, the nurses, everybody will start management immediately that patient is being brought in. That's emergency. But the problem now is not the human resources, it's the system. Are we really ready in terms of system that things should be put in place? Is our hospital equipped enough in order to resolve this issue? And they say that all the necessary equipment, consumable, are they available? Because if the provider, the resource person, in terms of the doctor, the nurses, are available and they have the knowledge, and what you have to use is not there, that's why this issue comes in.
All right, Dr. Saheed.
And now, because of that,
Dr. Saheed, sorry to cut in. We just need to go for a quick break, please. When we come back, we'd like you to continue with these explanations. Please stay with us.
You're welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're currently discussing the issues surrounding the sad death of Somtochukwu Maduagwu in Abuja earlier this weekend. Join us for this discussion. We have Dr. Babajide Saheed and also Mr. Deji Oyenuga, security operative. Now, let's get back to Dr. Saheed. You did mention that, look, in terms of personnel, the Nigerian medical facilities have the equipment, but have the personnel, but the issue is with the equipment, the system, and facilities. But let's talk about the psychological trauma of living in a country where home invasions, violent robberies, incidents of banditry and terrorism are rarely discussed, the psychological part of this. From your medical experience, what does this reveal about the public health consequences of insecurity, especially amongst young people? Even for my colleagues and I, almost on a daily basis, when we look at the newspaper, it's always, is it something that will, what's the psychological effect of it? Is this something that we eventually normalize?
I didn't get I didn't get you very well. I think you are talking about the psychological effect of this type of tragedy.
Yes. Happening week on, week out. Terrorism, banditry.
Hello?
Yes, happening, getting this sort of news every other day. Terrorism, banditry, violent crimes, and home invasions. Yes, the whole spectrum of insecurity.
Anyway, I didn't get very well. But what I'm just, if in terms of the psychological effect, nobody will lose somebody that will be upright, that will be happy. It has a lot of psychological effect, both on the family of the deceased, on the employer of the deceased, on the nation in general. Because it's like what the security expert said, it can happen to anybody. Everybody will think that situation like that, if like what happened at in Lagos at the Afriland or Tower, when somebody jumped, you saw somebody jump from top of the story and the person landed. Like what happened now? Those are the things we now think of. If such situation occur, how can we be able to resolve it? In terms of armed robbery, in terms of fire crisis, in terms of collapse building, what are the things? It gives a lot of people psychological effect in the sense that people don't have trust in the system. That can happen to anybody. Like this type of situation that happen is because we are not ready for medical or for emergency situation like this. The first thing that the expert has said, in any system, if such thing happen, there should be an ambulance that will be called immediately, that very near to the scene of accident. And the ambulance will now will tell the nearest hospital that they are bringing somebody. Now the hospital will be ready. Before the person get there, the person can be saved. Because the situation we have is that the bad road network, bad communication, bad the system, and the final system is bad. Therefore, people are likely to die from this because of the duration of the time before they get it. And because of that, it's a psychological thing for everybody that if things happen to me, what can be done? That person will definitely die. But the system, you need to change the system. You have to change the thinking of people. Losing somebody is not an easy thing. It will be on the mind of that person, of the family, throughout the life of such family. Therefore, it's a thing that you always give a post-traumatic or stress to the family and to the people. For example, she has a friend, she has a lot of friends. Even the way Nigeria are even looking at it, you can even think about, if I'm in a house and in a place and something happens, what should I have done? It's a general psychological effect.
All right. Gentlemen, we have to wrap up the conversation now. Thank you for your time with us this morning. I think that we can all agree that the way to honor her memory is to ensure that we do not have repeat incidents like this, that this is properly investigated and the right security architecture is put in place to ensure that Nigerians are protected. Thank you very much for your time with us.